Hello! Welcome back! I told you last week that this week I was going to talk about my book. Last week we read it, and this week I'm going to talk a little bit about how the process of making it. The process of going from just a little idea to a full book. So that's what we're going to talk about today. If you've ever played with the idea of making your own kids book, which I know a lot of people do because people talk to me and ask me about it all the time, I am here to help. I'll just share my experience. Everyone probably has their own whatever. I'm going to share my experience about how I went from just a concept all the way to a full published book. I'm going to talk about a lot about the art and the creating of the art and the thought process behind it, and also creating the concept of the characters and the different things. Going to talk about the writing, going to talk about the publishing process, which I think is really interesting. We're just going to talk about the entire process going all the way through. And so yeah, if you've ever thought about doing something like this, it's really fun. And there's lots of resources out there to help. So yeah. So I'm going to start with talking about the concept, getting the concept. I think, so with this book specifically, I talked a little last week about how I really, really enjoy, I really enjoy this story that I have been told about my great grandma and how she used to play the accordion. And it's connected to this, it's connected to this memory that I have of her playing her accordion. So I knew that when I started this book that I wanted it to be a little bit of like a slice of life, just taking this scene that I have in my mind of how I have recreated, how I've imagined this to be. So I thought I didn't want it to be like, there's not much, there is a little bit of a beginning, middle, and end, but mostly we're just taking my nieces and nephews through this scene, this slice of life, a little moment in my great grandma's life. So I started with writing. So I love Notion and I use it to kind of organize a lot of different things. So yes, when I first started, when I was thinking about the concept, I love Notion to just kind of keep track of a lot of my thoughts in general, but I also love writing in Notion. I'm going to tell you why. I don't know what that sound was, but I love writing in Notion, and I'm going to tell you why. So a lot of times when I'm writing, everyone's different and I'm not really a writer, but a lot of times when I'm writing, I kind of start with just these ideas or concepts, and I just kind of know how I want the story to flow in this very rudimentary conceptual way. So for example, this is what I'm thinking. Like dinner eaten, dishes clean, floor swept, homework finished, spray, 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 out the door, evening breeze, shady trees, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, music plays, gather round, one by one, settle down, dum, 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 listen up, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, Irish tune, fall asleep, sing along. Anyway, fall asleep, crickets sing too, snuggle in, end of the day, people say goodnight. Okay, so this is what I'm at this point very rudimentary, like I'm saying. It's just this conceptual, like kind of where I'm seeing this story going with these small ideas running through and flowing. This is actually pretty typical for me when I'm writing. I don't know if this is normal, but this is how I do it. I was going to say something about one of these things. Oh, and you can see that in some of these, I start to get this like rum pum pum, this da da da. And I've mentioned that my great grandma, one of the songs that I remember her playing a lot was the My Wild Irish Rose, and it's a waltz. And so it goes rum pa bum, my wild Irish rose. It's a waltz. And a waltz has this sort of rhythm to it, this rum pa bum. And so I tried to add that. I really wanted to add that into this, into my story to give it this musicality. Okay, so then I started thinking a little bit in the second column about like visually what's going to be going on, maybe like pulling out the accordion, some other things that I wanted to add in. And then I tell you this was a miracle because all of a sudden I'm just writing this poem and it's like, it turned out really nice. I did some back and forth. You can see that like some of these things made it, some of them didn't. But that's, anyway, I started getting this feel as dinner is over and dishes are clean, this floor is swept tidy, it's all routine. Okay, so yeah, that was my writing. Like I mentioned in the last video, the writing was a lot of it just kind of flowed really, really well. A lot more than usually when I'm writing. Writing is a challenge for me. It's not something that comes super naturally or easy, but it did this time. And I really think it was Heavenly Father really helping to, I think it was inspired. I really do think it was inspired. Okay, so once I had this concept and I had kind of written what I wanted to do, then I started designing. So I'll show you a little bit about that. I started designing and I knew that I wanted my great-grandma. There's some things that I really remember about my great-grandma. Her mom used to tell her that she was fat from the hips to the knees. It's a really nice thing to tell your daughter. But I wanted to kind of capitalize on that because she would always talk about how that was very like a big part of her, a feature of hers was that she was fat from the hips to the knees. This is now not working. Why? So let me go back to where I was. And at the bottom here, so these were some of the first drawings that I ever did of her. I don't know if you can see this, but if not, I'll pop it up on the screen. I'll try and put it up here. Anyway, these are some of the first drawings. So I was very rudimentary, just kind of trying to feel out and explore what she was going to look like. I was looking at old pictures of her, trying to imitate her hair, her glasses. She has this like distinctive lip that I was trying to add in there, her face shape, different things. But I also wanted to be fun and something simple that I could repeat over and over again. So I'll actually show you. This was kind of how I started with my character exploration. I just looked at a lot of photos. I looked at a lot of photos of hers and started drawing from those. But I also was looking at other old photos at the time, and I was just kind of doodling and drawing and trying to get into the feel of the hair and the clothing and the fashion and the glasses and other things. And then I started trying to implement those sorts of things into a design. So you can see some of the different ways that I was going, exploring different areas. And then I kind of landed on this one. I really liked what was going on. I started playing with some silhouettes. At this point, I'm just playing around and trying to play with it. I have this one here, and this was when I started really liking it. I did end up shortening her nose. So like I tweaked this design, but that's when I felt like, okay, I've got something that I like here. And then I started playing a little bit with some expressions. So that was that. And then once I had a face, you can see her expressions are different. So then I wanted to pick a costume. And so here I was exploring different costumes, things that I thought would be very interesting. I'm also exploring hair here. So hair is changing and costumes are changing. And as I go through, I'm exploring these different hairstyles, and I ended up really liking this one. So that's what I decided to go with. I actually kind of have a mix of this one and this one because her bangs are a little more poofy in the final. And then I was asking my grandma what my great-grandma used to wear, what she used to like, things like that. She didn't really actually wear skirts a lot, but I liked the idea of like the swooshiness of her skirt. So I actually gave her a skirt, even though she did wear skirts, but not like all the time. I remember her wearing things that kind of looked like this a lot more. And then I was playing with colors, and I finally decided on this blue one because I wanted it to go really well with this color scheme that I was going to go for. Okay, so I thinned out, here you can see, I thinned out her hips. I gave her a smaller head, and I made her a little shorter because when I had a design that I really liked, I sent it to my aunt, to my mom, to my grandma, and I wanted to know their opinions if they could, like, obviously it's not a portrait, but if they felt like I had embodied somewhat the essence of my great grandma. And so those were their, some of their critiques, and that's what we did. And then that's when I started doing some of these designs, and I was playing with different like expressions and things like that. This was a few years ago, a year and a half ago. And looking at it now, I'm like, woo, the anatomy. No, there's definitely some things I would improve on this time, but I was younger, and we grow. And that's the thing. If you're getting better, then you're going to look back and you're not going to like some of your old stuff, and that's okay. So now I want to talk about the storyboards. The next thing I did is I kind of was looking at the storyboards and what I wanted to be portraying. So I started, let me see if I can take off this, there. I started the storyboards like this without the color, because I was just kind of thinking of how I was going to bring it together. So you can see here, the story starts, and at this point, I wasn't even thinking of like exact ratio of the book or anything. So we go through and you can see these are very rudimentary drawings, like no faces. I'm just thinking about placement, thinking about overall feel, what's going on, some action. Here she's bringing the accordion out, things like that, right? So that's all I'm really playing on. I'm not focusing on like many details at all. Okay. So then I added in these colors, and the reason I added in the colors was because I pretty soon realized as I started this project that I talked about this a little bit in the last video, I wanted the mood of this story to kind of go from dusk into nighttime. And I wanted the entire story to feel like it's getting later and later and it's time to go to bed, and now it's nighttime. So I actually, when I was doing the actual illustrations, I didn't start with just a white background. I started with like an orange background or a red or a purple or whatever, depending on the page I was on, because I wanted to be able to show that, to start with that feel and that color scheme and build off of that. So that's what I was kind of thinking about with the color scheme. So now I had a basic concept, and I don't know, can you like see my face? We'll never know. I had a basic concept, and I felt like I had basically my storyboards, and I knew basically what was going to be going on, my character. But now I had to get into the nitty-gritty of the details. And before I could start really drawing the illustrations or anything, I had to know the ratio. And I think this is really important if by some chance you think that you want to do like a self-published a book or any project really, it's really good to start knowing what size you're going to do. So I jumped onto Lulu.com because I have worked with them before. I think they have really good quality. They have a pretty fast turnaround. I just really like them. I jumped onto Lulu.com and I started looking at the options that they have. So on Lulu.com, let me check if it is Lulu.com. Yeah. So you can price out, I don't know if you can see this, but you can price out your different projects. So for example, like I did a magazine, and I mentioned this in the last video because I did a magazine because I wanted to be able to, I didn't want this inside page to just be white. I wanted the inside page to have a design, an illustration there. So at the time, this might have changed, but at the time, the only option to have an inside page was with the magazine option. So I did the magazine option, and then I decided what size I wanted to do. I think mine is maybe US letter. My page count, I think, was 36. I just did the perfect bound, premium color. I don't think they had uncoded at the time. I definitely have coded white. Uncoded would be nice for some of my projects. I did matte. This actually is shiny. I started with matte. Anyway, and then it gives you, so I knew that it was going to be $9 per book, but it also, you can start downloading the templates for your cover and for the inside of the book. And that way you know exactly what you need to do with your illustrations, with your everything, with the layout of the book. So this is how I started. And at this point, I downloaded the templates and I knew exactly how big my animation, or exactly how big my illustrations needed to be. So I got started illustrating, and I'm going to show a little bit about my process. I actually changed it a little bit halfway through. So we're going to get off of this. You can see here that some of these original drawings actually are not, even though I had started with this like orangish color scheme, I was bringing in a lot of these greens and playing with like maybe more realistic colors. You can see the process here. So it finally turned out kind of like, I think this one will show well. So this is how it turned out. So this is how it turned out. And I really, really liked it. I was really proud of it. But then the more I looked at it, I just felt like I had lost that warmth of the dusk because of all the green in the plants. Also, this is freaking Phoenix. It's a desert. There are not that many plants. I mean, there are in some places, but anyway, I, at the time especially, tended to go toward these more realistic colors. And so I thought, what would happen if I started pulling out of that? So this is where the color scheme really, really started to come alive. And so I did that very similar illustration, but now really capitalizing on these warm purples and oranges, showing this feel. I mean, trees do not have... I was able to pull back from these really realistic colors, and I was absolutely in love. I had a lot of fun with this. It was really cool. Anyway, so this is where I was like, okay, this is really working. This is the direction I want to go. And I started moving forward with that. You can see I was 2 illustrations in because I also had done this one. And their character designs were very poor. So I'm glad I moved on. How do I get out of this? Okay, so I don't have a ton to say about, I just started drawing. I was just pounding through a lot of these illustrations, to be honest. Maybe I will show like a time lapse of doing some of the illustrations because that's actually really interesting. I had a lot of characters and it was started to get hard for me to keep track of them all. So I started having to like collect them, and these are the characters that exist. So I don't have, so that the families and the characters were the same and consistent throughout the story. So here's one of the places where almost all of the characters show up, which was really fun. And I had some other things showing up, like here's the, I told you guys last time about the little crickets. So here the crickets show up. Here's another cricket. There was a dog that shows up quite a bit throughout the book. This bunny that this little girl has as a pet. This little kid has a little cat as a pet. They also have a cat. So like bringing in I'm actually not a big animal person, but a lot of people are, and I thought it would be fun to bring in some of the animals. But yeah, so here's all these people going home at this point. This one was really fun. This one I had to be really conscious about where that middle line was, because when I first designed it, I had this couple right here, right on the middle line. And so like you couldn't see them because the book doesn't open all the way and their faces were cut off. And anyway, so I had to move them over to take care of that middle line. And then I brought in, so I made a font. I don't know if you've ever heard of two things. First of all, for her skirt, here you can see her skirt. So I made a special brush that was this pattern. So I created the pattern of her skirt, which is actually very simple. And then I created a brush that would just be that pattern, which I'm really happy about because I thought that was really cute. And it was also fun to have a touch of something that was so uniquely mine. This is literally what her accordion looks like. This is her accordion. Okay, and I have another thing to show you. So here's where the boards were a little bit more developed, and I started getting a lot more into the colors overall. So I'm adding in those blues of the tree. Wow, I just drew on that. Changing some of the colors a little bit so that the transition's a little bit nicer. Getting a lot more into that color scheme. The more pre-work that I do, the better it is when I just start drawing, because a lot of the decisions have already been made, and then I'm just doing the work. So that's really nice. So I started playing with those sorts of things. Another thing that I had to think about was, as it got darker, their color tones, their skin tones also had to get darker because there's less light, right? And so I had to be aware of, I couldn't just like copy and paste the exact same skin tone all the way through, because then all of a sudden these people were glowing in this darkness, whereas because of the lack of light, it should have gone down. So here you can see a little bit. I'll show you in... I created a font. Have you ever heard of Calligrapher? I think that's what it's called. So I created this font right here. You can see, I just made all of the letters and the numbers a different note. And then I just typed random things. And that's how I made these really cool, like, where the music is just swirling around. That was because I just made a line and I typed it all out. So that way I didn't have to just like, I don't know. It was fun. So this was my own font. This was also my own font that I made. So the entire thing has my fonts throughout it. I also did this. So everything is my own font, which is really fun. So yeah, once I had the PDFs all put together, all I had to do was I had to come here to Lulu, and if you go over to create, then you can create whatever you're doing, your kids book, your print books, whatever. And so I went to create magazines, and that's when I started uploading the files, and I could, and then I ordered them, and then I ordered one to check and see how it turned out. And I liked it. And then I ordered the 20 that I gave to my family. So that was it. It's actually pretty simple, pretty interesting. Yeah. If you have questions, let me know. If I totally glazed over something, let me know. So that's it. That's the process. That's how I made Accordion Nights. I'm working on some more right now with other stories. For example, my grandma on my other side. Well, teaser. Stay tuned. But yes, that's it. If you have any questions, I would love to answer them. You can, like, I don't know, leave them in the comments. And I will answer them next time or in the future. So yeah, if you have any questions about it, or thoughts. Anyway, I would love to hear it. Feel free to subscribe if you want. Like, stay tuned because next week I'm taking you on a journey of making a mural that I'm working on for my sister-in-law and her kids. So stay tuned. It's going to be really cool. It's going to be really fun. I think you're going to like it. And yeah, see you next week.